Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to the first episode of a new series of me just going through my director collections. It's a fun way of kind of showing off a bit of my collection without going through the painstaking task of showing every single disc that I have. Directors can be wonderful people producing wonderful films, and the first subject of my director collections is one of the greatest, certainly up there in the not really appreciated in his time, and that of course is David Cronenberg, right up there with Orson Welles and Michael Powell as directors not really appreciated when they were actually making films, but 50 years from now everybody will realise that the man was a genius, really smart, obviously because he's Canadian, but is never condescending with it in interviews or anything. He still has that wry sense of humour despite the fact he's a very intelligent man. Obviously critics of his work that don't like his films probably would tell you he's not that intelligent, but they would be fibbing. So he is getting on a bit. The Shrouds is his latest film that will be coming out shortly. I think it's already been to Cannes and probably booed, which is always a sign of good things. So I'm just going to go through the editions of his films that I have. So I think I have pretty much everything apart from his motor car film with Richard Smith, which is available in Blu-ray, and I probably should get Fast Company, but I've just never actually got around to it. But apparently it's a fun little film, and I really should pick it up at some point, because as you may or may not know, I'm a bit of a completist with directors. I try and get the whole oeuvre if I can. It's the same with music. I try and get a band or an artist's whole discography instead of just the hits, just to get a full complete picture of the artist, and certainly Cronenberg is one of them. I didn't really start with Cronenberg for any real reason. I must have just been thinking about him, so I thought it's a pretty good place to start when you're talking about one of the best directors. Well, certainly he's in the running for the greatest living director, along with Tsukamoto. But again, these are in no order. There is a couple that I have in multiple editions. Can't imagine how that happened. Just because it's the top of the pile, we'll start with David Cronenberg's early works, Transfer, From the Drain, Stereo, and Crimes of the Future, which of course is also his last film on home physical media until the Shrouds come out. And these are fascinating little films. I wouldn't say any of them are masterpieces or anything, but they're certainly a fascinating prelude of what comes next. This is the Arrow Blu-ray. I think I didn't get the first printing of these, so I didn't get a booklet. Unbelievable. So this just has a piece by Kim Newman talking about Cronenberg's early work. Those cold buildings that Cronenberg shoots lots of, just because mostly shot in Toronto, and Toronto seems to love cold buildings. Again, these aren't in any order, even though these seem to be in a little bit of order. It's Shivers, or The Parasite Murders, or They Came From Within. This is the Arrow, lovely artwork. On Blu-ray, again, this has reversible artwork with the They Came From Within. It's kind of funny that Cronenberg's early films were financed by the Canadian government, which is kind of funny. So this is a wonderful film. I mean, I'm not going to go into too much detail on the films. I assume most people have seen a large chunk of these because Cronenberg's awesome. There's Parasite Memories, The Making of Shivers, which is a brand new documentary with Barbara Steele, Alan Coleman and Lynn Lowry. They're on screen an episode of the Canadian television programme which documents the release history of Shivers, featuring interviews with Cronenberg and co-producer Don Carmody, as well as cast and crew. From stereo to video, a specially commissioned video essay by Callan Vatnsdal, who sounds like a character from a Cronenberg film, author of The Came From Within, a history of Canadian horror cinema, charting Cronenberg's career from his experimental beginnings through to Videodrome, his first major studio picture, and there's an original trailer as well. So that's the wonderful Shivers. And then we have the wonderful Rabid. You can't have Shivers without Rabid. And this does have a booklet, and this is the days of the Blu-ray and DVD, reversible artwork as well. This has got a new high definition transfer. There's a commentary with Cronenberg. Cronenberg is one of the best directors for commentaries. And there's a commentary with William Beard, author of The Artist as Monster, The Cinema of David Cronenberg. There's an archive interview with Cronenberg, a brand new interview with executive producer Ivan Reitman, a brand new interview with co-producer Don Carmody, Raw, Rough and Rabid, The Lacerating Legacy of Cinepix, a featurette looking back at the early years of the celebrated Canadian production company, including interviews with author Keira LaJeunesse and special makeup artist Joe Blasco. Makeup Memories, Joe Blasco remembers Rabid, a short featurette in which Blasco recalls how the film's various gruesome effects were achieved. The directors, David Cronenberg, a 1999 documentary on the filmmaker containing interviews with Cronenberg, Marilyn Chambers, Deborah Harry, Michael Ironside, Peter Weller and others, and original trailer. And the booklet does feature an essay with Keira LaJeunesse from excerpts of Cronenberg on Cronenberg, which is an excellent book if you get a chance to pick that up, plus an archive interview with Marilyn Chambers. So that's Rabid, which does go hand in glove, obviously a protective glove, with Shivers. Then next we have the Arrow 4K of Videodrome. And we have the 4K with art cards. I think Videodrome was one of the first Cronenbergs that I saw. There is a poster and a lovely booklet with that wonderful image, Long Live the New Flesh. Images and essays, James Wood's seminal performances, Of course, a lot of Cronenberg is ahead of his time, as I said, and kind of prefigures lots of technological advances that actually happen. There's an absolute ton of special features. There's a 4K restoration of the full length director's cut and the US theatrical cut approved by Cronenberg. There's an audio commentary by Tim Lucas, the on-set correspondent for Cinema Fantastique magazine and author of Videodrome Studies in the Horror Film. David Cronenberg in the Cinema of the Extreme, a documentary featuring interviews with Cronenberg, George Romero, Alex Cox on Cronenberg's cinema, censorship and the horror genre. Forging the New Flesh, a documentary by filmmaker Michael Lennick on Videodrome's video and prosthetic makeup effects. Fear on Film, a roundtable discussion from 1982 with Cronenberg, John Carpenter, John Landis and Mick Garris. The complete uncensored Samurai Dreams footage with commentary by Michael Lennick. Helmet Cam Test and Why Betamax, 2 featurettes by Michael Lennick on the film's effects. The Making of with Cronenberg, which is 1982 as well, by Mick Garris, with behind the scenes footage and interviews with Cronenberg, James Woods, Deborah Harry and Rick Baker. Video Oblivion, an interview with cinematographer Mark Irwin. Pierre David on Videodrome, an interview with executive producer Pierre David, strangely enough. aka Jack Martin, an interview with Dennis Etchison, author of novelizations of Videodrome and The Fog, discussing Videodrome and the observations of Cronenberg's script. Camera, Cronenberg's short film starring Videodrome's Les Carlson. Pirated Signals, the Lost Broadcast, deleted and alternate scenes from the TV version. Original trailers, image gallery, and again a 60-page booklet. So that's the 4K of Videodrome. And then we have Arrow's 4K of Naked Lunch. Exterminate all rational thought, of course. Naked Lunch, not for everybody, but then poster. None of Cronenberg's films are really for everybody. Lots of various posters from around the world. Again, images. I won't show that image. Images and essays. Lovely big thick book. When I was at university, some friends recommended going to a video shop. If you remember the days there were video shops, and we all got to pick a film, and of course I picked Naked Lunch because I obviously was a fan of Cronenberg, and of course we watched it and everybody was completely confused. Some people left the room, some people fell ill, some people fell asleep, some people started a whole new religion, some people lost their minds, but we all had a wonderful time, and I was never allowed to pick a video ever again. Probably his most famous film for those mainstream people, The Fly. Again, Cronenberg was supposed to do Total Recall for Mel Brooks, but then as soon as Schwarzenegger was involved, that kind of changed. So sort of as a favour, Mel Brooks let him do The Fly. That's one of the greatest remakes of all time. I mean, again, I could be wrong, but I'm surprised this doesn't have a 4K. You can let me know in the comments if it does have a 4K, but I'm actually surprised it doesn't. Everybody loves The Fly. It's all good, clean fun. Then we have from Second Sight, The Brood, with Oliver Reed and Samantha Eggar. This is all about divorce. This is also available in Criterion Blu-ray. This is just wonderful, and again it's all about divorce and the burden of divorce on children and the psychological damage of divorce on children. Again, Oliver Reed runs this Soma-Free Institute of Psychoplasmics, but again, Cronenberg was like so ahead of the curve, you know, in Rabid there's this discussion about, we'll have plastic surgeons almost like McDonald's, and it's so good. In this one we've got an interview with Art Hindle and Cindy Hines, interviewed by Fangoria editor Chris Alexander. The Look of Rage, an interview with cinematographer Mark Irwin. Producing the Brood, interview with producer Pierre David. Character for Cronenberg, interview with actor Robert A. Silverman. And Cronenberg, the early years, writer-director Cronenberg discusses how he broke into filmmaking. So The Brood's another early corker, not as not as apocalyptic as Shivers or Rabid, but it's probably better than Shivers or Rabid. There's a bit more cerebral stuff that we would later know and love. Next, A History of Violence. Now, at the time, there was this and another film that were kind of released back to back fairly quickly. And A History of Violence is the one that got all the plaudits, and the other film was kind of left in the shadows, even though I think to some extent they're kind of flipped. So we've got Viggo Mortensen and Ed Harris. Viggo Mortensen is a small town guy who has a past that he either can't remember or is choosing to forget, and then his past catches up with him in the form of Ed Harris. It's a fun film, but again, it's not amongst Cronenberg's, it's not amongst my favourite Cronenbergs at least. The next one is, I think this was probably the last Cronenberg film to get a Blu-ray release, and again, this is like so underrated. I did a video on it, done a couple of videos on it I think. This is Spider, where Ray Fiennes, Miranda Richards and Gabriel Byrne, and Vanessa Redgrave, Lynn Redgrave, I always get my Redgraves mixed up. Well, not Michael and the female Redgraves, I usually get them sorted. John Neville as well. This is unbelievably depressing, but it's kind of wonderful about mental health and the past and the stories we kind of tell ourselves. This is a Sony Pictures classic, so it is just the bare bones, but it was just so wonderful to see get a Blu-ray release finally, and it just gets better and better every time I watch it, so that's highly recommended if you haven't seen it. Again, for me, one of Cronenberg's lesser works, but it's still very good. And this is Maps to the Stars. It's basically a Hollywood documentary, as we've heard all the stories since it actually came out. But it's a wonderful cast of John Cusack and Olivia Williams, Mia Wasikowski, Robert Pattinson, Julianne Moore. Again, it's not amongst my favourite Cronenberg films, but it's certainly well worth checking out. This one might be my least favourite Cronenberg film, but again, it's still a good film. This is A Dangerous Method, all about Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud, with Fassbender, who at the time I think was just about in one in every 3 films made. Viggo Mortensen again, who has kind of become a Cronenberg muse. Vincent Cassel, Keira Knightley. Again, it's a good film. This is just a standard release. But if I'm going to watch a Cronenberg film, it's not necessarily going to be A Dangerous Method. And then his most recent, as far as physical media is concerned, The Wonderful Crimes of the Future, which is almost like a greatest hits, but it's still brilliant. Again, Viggo Mortensen, Lea Seydoux, and Kristen Stewart. And it starts with a mother killing her child, so I think this was booed at Cannes, but again, that's a sign of you've made a good film, pretty much. Crash. One of his funniest films, based on the Ballard novel, the unfilmable novel. This is a German media book, which is Blu-ray and DVD. I actually saw this in the cinema, can you believe it? A complete furore and controversy, but it's actually one of the greatest films of the 90s. Might be the greatest film of the 90s, I don't know. Again, another one that is not amongst my favourites. I know Nazrin Prod is a big fan of it. And this is Cosmopolis. Again, it's a good film, but again, for me, it's not amongst his best. Robert Pattinson again, Juliette Binoche, Paul Giamatti, Samantha Morton. It is a fascinating film, but again, for me, not amongst his best. Crimes of the Future, and this is an Italian 4K. I think Crimes of the Future might be my favourite film of 2023. I know that's not too much competition because I don't really watch too many modern films. And yes, I get some nice art cards, and this has a Blu-ray as well as the 4K, and a booklet as well as the art cards. And of course, it was good to see the Canadian actor that I've just completely forgotten his name, who was in early Atom McGowan films, turn up in Crimes of the Future. That's terrible. I've completely blanked his name. Again, probably this might have been the first Cronenberg film I ever watched or ever saw. Scanners, of course. This is a Second Sight steelbook, just plain inside, with the 10 second, the pain begins, 15 seconds you can't breathe, 20 seconds you explode. David Cronenberg's The Scanners. And then we've got an Arrow steelbook of Shivers, aka Parasite Murders, aka The Game with Marin. Again, this is a Blu-ray and DVD with a booklet, and there is a lovely image on the inside. So that's a very nice steelbook of Shivers, aka The Game Within, aka Parasite Murders. And then the Kino Lorber 4K of Eastern Promises. So this is the underrated one to History of Violence. I prefer Eastern Promises, but that's just me. Another great Viggo Mortensen performance, and Naomi Watts as well. It's from 2007. So this has a featurette with screenwriter Stephen Knight, featurette with Cronenberg. There's actually 3 featurettes with Cronenberg, and there's a featurette with Naomi Watts and 2 theatrical trailers, and Vincent Cassel, who's in the Shrouds, the upcoming Shrouds. Yeah, I always liked Eastern Promises a little bit more, well, a big bit more than History of Violence. And this is the Criterion of Crash, spy number 1059. Again, if you were living in 1996 in the UK, you can remember the controversy. So it's wonderful to see it getting Blu-ray releases. Of course, that's the famous press image that was all over the papers when they were calling Cronenberg a degenerate and all other things. Yes, wonderful Crash. And then the Criterion of Scanners with the amazing artwork. This is a Region A. Yeah, the artwork in this is just stunning. It's one of Criterion's best artworks. There's the booklet. It's actually a 3-disc with a Blu-ray and 2 DVDs. And again, the booklet with that wonderful lime green aesthetic, and on the inside as well. As I said, this is a region A. This has got Scanner's Way, a new documentary on the film special effects, featuring Cronenberg's collaborators. Mental Saboteur, a new interview with Michael Ironside. The Ephemeral Diaries, a 2012 interview with Stephen Lack. An excerpt from the 1981 interview with Cronenberg on CBC's The Bob McLean Show. A new restored 2K digital transfer of Stereo from 1969, Cronenberg's first film, and a trailer. And there's an essay by Kim Newman in the booklet. So that's the criterion of Scanners. And here's the criterion of Naked Lunch. This is a region A with a little bug in the back as well. And again, really thick booklet. As I said, Don't Let Me Need a Video rental shop. Audio commentary featuring Cronenberg and Peter Weller. Naked Making Lunch, a 1992 documentary by Chris Rodley about the making of the film. Strangely enough. A special effects gallery, and a collection of original marketing materials, and an audio recording of William H. Burroughs reading from his novel Naked Lunch. And there's a photo gallery as well. That's spine number 220 for the criterion of Naked Lunch. And then here's the second site, 4K of Crimes of the Future. This is actually still available to buy, which seems bizarre to me. But then Cronenberg isn't necessarily everybody's cup of tea. You get art cards, a very thick, lovely booklet. Yeah, watching it for the first time, it was like having an old friend back, and it does stand up to multiple viewings. Obviously, as I said, Cronenberg's not for everybody, but that's not really my problem, because I adore the man. And then we have the Umbrella edition of Crash. You know, I've just got like a few on different formats. This is a region B. Just the same artwork inside. So this has a Cronenberg introduction, Cronenberg Challenge from 2020, which was an interview with Peter Krzyzewski, the DP. Mechanical Animals 2020, an interview with Jeremy Thomas, the producer. The Shore Thing, see what they've done there, from 2020 is an interview with Howard Shore, the composer. License to Drive 2020, an interview with casting director Deirdre Bowen, and there's a press kit and a trailer. So of course I accidentally got that. And then perhaps the best packaging in the whole Criterion collection, perhaps, the DVD release of Videodrome, which is like a videotape. I mean, I do love that. Long live the new flesh. It's like a videotape. I have tried inserting this into my stomach. It won't go. There's a nice booklet in the first disc. I mean, I'm willing to try it again, but certainly the first 20 times I tried it, it just wouldn't go into my stomach. You know, but you never know. So this is spine number 248, and this has two audio commentaries, one Cronenberg and DP Mark Irvin and James Woods and Deborah Harry. There's a camera, a short film with Videodrome's Les Carlson, written and directed by Cronenberg. 40-page booklet, Forging the New Flesh, a new half-hour documentary featurette by filmmaker Michael Lennick. So it's pretty much some of the stuff that's on the Arrow release, but the packaging alone makes this an essential Criterion. The Dead Zone, this is on imprint spine number 60. I mean, you get Cronenberg and Christopher Walken. I mean, what more could you possibly ask for? Stephen King's The Dead Zone, Cronenberg proving he could do a studio picture. So this has a ton of special features, Commentary by Stephen Jones and Kim Newman, which is always wonderful to listen to them. Look Past the Future, Filming the Dead Zone, an interview with Mark Irvin and music producer engineer James Guthrie from 2021. From Coma to Coda, Scoring the Dead Zone, interview with composer Edward Sherman, discussing Michael Kamen's score from 2021, because sadly, obviously, Michael Kamen can't discuss it himself. Dino in the Dark, Adapting the King of Horror, documentary featuring interviews with Mark L. Lester, Joseph Madry, Lewis Teague, Dan Atlas, Mick Garris, Tom McLaughlin, Anti-Magistrate from 2021. Frank Dodd and the Cujo Connection, visual essay by Lee Gambon, 2021. 4 featurettes, Memories from the Dead Zone, The Look of the Dead Zone, Visions and Horror from the Dead Zone, The Politics of the Dead Zone, and vintage interviews from 1983 with Cronenberg, Deborah Hill and Martin Sheen, interview with Stephen King, and the trailer. So that's the wonderful Dead Zone. Obviously I'm biased because it's got Cronenberg and Walken. And here's the Arrow 4K of Crash. Just in case you were sick of Crash, here's another edition of Crash, with a poster, of course, that never goes up. 2 copies of the Crash art card. A lovely front cover where James Spader and Deborah Unger are talking about semen, I believe. And there's James Spader and Holly Hunter. Yeah, because I remember people did walk out of the cinema when I was there for Crash, mainly because they thought it was going to be either an erotic thriller, which it wasn't, or an action-packed car chase film with sex, which it wasn't. So they kind of left confused. Again, the 4K has a ton of special features, which I think most of them were on the Blu-ray release. There's a commentary with Adrian Martin, interviews with Krzyzewski, Jeremy Thomas, Howard Shore and Deirdre Bowen. There's a 2019 Q&A with Cronenberg and Viggo Mortensen, which is fantastic. There's a 1996 Q&A with Cronenberg and Ballard, which is fantastic. Behind the scenes and contemporary press interviews, Architect of Pain, the Cronenberg Project, video essay by Callum Vatnsdal on Cronenberg's use of architecture and location, Crash from 1971, which is 18 minutes long, the short film originally broadcast as part of BBC review series starring J.G. Ballard and loosely adapted from his 1970 novel The Atrocity Incubation, The Atrocity Exhibition, which is actually a lot of fun. 2 short films inspired by Ballard in the novel Crash, Nightmare Angel from Zoe Beloff 1986, which is 33 minutes, and Always in brackets Crashing from Simon Baker and Jason Wood in 2016, which is 14 minutes. And we get 2 Cronenberg short films, which is a wonderful bonus as well. The Nest from 2013, which is 10 minutes, and At the Suicide of the Last Jew in the World, in the Last Cinema in the World from 2007, which is 4 minutes, and you get original trailers. So absolutely stacked for one of Cronenberg's masterpieces, Crash. Here we have the 101 Black Label edition of Rabid. This is by number 9, all the way from 1977. And again, this has a booklet with Marlon Chambers' mouth. And again, some writings. And this is actually a 2 Blu-ray set. So this is The Quiet Revolution, State Society and the Canadian Horror Film, Part 1. Gimme Shelter, Cinepix and the Birth of the Canadian Horror Film. Audio commentary by filmmakers Jen and Sylvia Soska. There's a commentary with Cronenberg, commentary with William Beard, audio commentary with Jill C. Nelson, author of Golden Goddesses, 25 Legendary Women of Classic Erotic Cinema in 1968 from 1985, and Marlon Chambers' personal appearance manager Ken Lecht. Young and Rabid, an interview with actress Susan Roman. Archive interview with Cronenberg. The director is David Cronenberg, a 1999 documentary, which is on the Arrow release. So that's the 101 Black Label for Rabid. Here's the Vinegar Syndrome 4K of Existenz. Again, one of Cronenberg's underrated films, but again, just becomes more and more relevant as time passes. This is his satire on entertainment, test audiences, gaming, virtual reality, pretty much just everything. And again, ahead of its time, wasn't a big hit when it came out, but again just gets better and better every time you watch it. And there's the slipcover and the 4K. Again, you get a 4K and a Blu-ray, and this has a lot of extras in very small writing. This has a commentary with film historian Jennifer Moorman. There's an archival commentary with Cronenberg, an archival commentary with Peter Shusevsky, and an archival commentary with visual effects supervisor Jim Isaac. There is lots of featurettes, a 22-minute one with the art director, a 9-minute one with the makeup effects artist, and a brand new interview with producer, and there's a 7-minute interview with the opening title designer, and there's a wonderful bit on production designer Carol Spear, which is 48 minutes, who did most of Cronenberg's films, and there's other promotional featurettes, archival interviews with Cronenberg, Jude Law, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Willem Dafoe, who of course hilariously plays Gas in the film, a man who runs a gas station. So that's the 4K of Existenz from Vinegar Syndrome. This is VS454 if anybody's counting at home. And this is the 101 Black Label Blu-ray of Existenz. Spine number 2. And again, you get a nice little booklet with nice little images and writings about a nice little film. And again, this is Blu-ray and DVD. There's Jude Law, who's not actually annoying in this film, which is interesting. There's an interview with Christopher Eccleston, there's a commentary by Kim Newman and Ryan Lambie, and there's a commentary by Mondo Digital's Nathaniel Thompson, and there's a commentary by Cronenberg. There's a making of, promo featurette, and backstage interviews with Jude Law, Jennifer Leigh, Jason Leigh, and David Cronenberg. So that's Existenz on Blu-ray. And then probably one of his films that just gets forgotten about, which is flawed but it's still very good, Butterfly with Jeremy Irons. This is a Shout Select Blu-ray, so this is Region A. Looks gorgeous, based on a true story. That is a bit of a strange true story about this French diplomat that didn't realise the young woman that he falls for is actually a young man, played by John Lone. But it's a beautiful film. There's an interview with Cronenberg, and there's a commentary by William Beard, the author of The Artist as Monster, The Cinema of David Cronenberg. Yeah, it's a lot better than I remember it when I saw it years ago. And again, I think this was one of the last ones to get a Blu-ray release. Then another one of his masterworks. This should really get a 4K as well. This is Dead Ringers. This is the Scream Factory 2-disc edition. there's 2 discs just in case you didn't believe me. And this was, Cronenberg becoming more mature, not necessarily himself, but his films kind of becoming classier and not so gory, even though people kind of missed the point because Cronenberg just was using the horror genre as a metaphor because he deals in lots of metaphors. So this one has a new commentary by William Beard, author of Artist's Monster, the cinema of David Cronenberg, but there's an absolutely brilliant commentary by Jeremy Irons, who should have got the Oscar for this, got it for a year later, and then his acceptance speech thanked Cronenberg. That commentary is brilliant about acting and everything. And in the second disc there's a new 2K scan with Cronenberg's preferred aspect ratio, which is 166:1 as opposed to 178:1, which is on disc 1. There's new interviews with Stephen Lack and Heidi von Pulaski, Peter Krzyzewski and special effects artist Gordon Smith, vintage interviews, behind the scenes featurette and a theatrical trailer. So that's the magnificent Dead Ringers. Again, a happy-go-lucky film with a wonderful happy ending. And then as part of the Scream Factory Fly collection, strangely enough, it has Cronenberg's The Fly. Be afraid, be very afraid. This set is pretty wonderful. So this one has new interviews with producers Mel Brooks and Stuart Cornfeld. It's a new commentary with William Beard. It's that man again, William Beard, the Artist's Monster, the cinema of David Cronenberg. There's an audio commentary with Cronenberg, which is fantastic. There's a 3-part documentary with Cronenberg, deleted scenes with storyboard and script comparisons, alternate ending, and the Brundle Museum of Natural History, promotional featurettes and trailers. And this is Region A, as it's Scream Factory. So in this set, I did a video for this years ago. You get the Fly 2, the original Fly, Return of the Fly, and the Curse of the Fly. Lots of fun to be had from that box set. And I think that's all my versions of Cronenberg films. As I said, I don't have Fast Company in Blu-ray, even though it is available in Blu-ray, so I might have to pick that up at some point just to be a completist. And hopefully the Shrouds will get a physical media release, because I'm obviously not allowed to go to the cinema for religious reasons. So thanks so much for watching. Please let me know which Cronenberg films are your favourites and which editions of his films you have. No doubt I've forgotten one, and I'll be slapping my head as soon as I stop recording. So thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I'll be bringing another of my director collections to your living rooms soon. So that was David Cronenberg in all the copies of his films that I have in the collection. This is Saul Ronan from Saul Ronan Films, saying farewell.